Hi everyone, my name is Tori, this is No Life, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about books that are or are not worth the hype. As you guys may have noticed, October has been a whirlwind of new releases. The romance genre has had so many new releases, and I'm filming this on the 18th, and there's still half the month to go with even more new releases. So I wanted to wait and do like a full video, but I do have some books that I wanted to sit down and talk about and basically tell you guys if they are worth the hype or if they are not worth the hype. Now, if you've noticed from the thumbnail, I do have a lot of super hyped books to talk about, and the books that I have to talk about were at one point when they released the #1 book in the Kindle store, which I wanted to see if they were actually worth the hype because honestly, there's just so many books and I tried my hardest to squeeze in as many new releases as I can. With all that being said, let's just go ahead and dive right in. So the first book I want to talk about is one of the first new releases that I read. So that was The Broken Vow by Katerina Mora. So this book actually was the 4th or 5th book in this Windsor series. I read The Unwanted Marriage by her, which released earlier this year around June or July. Absolutely loved it. That was a very, very good book to me. Unfortunately, The Broken Vow is one that I DNF'd. Now, I did get an arc of this book and I got through 42%, and I DNF'd it after kind of like this time jump between the characters. So all this series is a bunch of billionaires that kind of get matched up when they're supposed to be married. Some of them are arranged marriage, like throughout the whole series, but it's like a billionaire series, and I love that. I love it with possessive, protective heroes, and I felt like when the time jump happened, the book lost me. I did not have any desire to continue at that moment. It's one of those books that I definitely want to pick up again and continue to see if it like lives up to the previous book in this series because that was such a good read for me. But I personally don't think out of all the new releases that have recently came out, this one came out the very end of September, but I was reading it when the start of October happened. But I just don't think personally this lives up to the same hype as the previous book in the series. So while this is another book that did hit #1, I don't think this is Katerina Mora's strongest book, which makes me feel really sad to say because I've been a fan of hers, and some books are hits and some are misses, but more recently they've been hits for me, and it just makes me sad that this one is just one that I did receive an arc for, and I'm extremely grateful that I did. I just was not liking it. So I left it as currently reading on Goodreads because I do want to get back to it and finish it out. I just have no desire to continue now, so it was a soft DNF for me, unfortunately. The next book I want to talk about is one that was also #1 in the Kindle store when it was released, which, I mean, I was kind of surprised this one was on there, and that is Between Love and Loathing by Shane Rose. So this is one of the books I recently finished. I downloaded it in Kindle Unlimited, and I wanted to see why this book was #1 because I don't think when Between Commitment and Betrayal was released earlier this year, I don't know if that one hit #1. But this released on October 3rd, and I thought, why not pick it up, see what it's all about? When I actually started reading, I didn't know that this book had chronic illness rep in it. So this book has a long list of like hit tropes that people love. It is kind of enemies to lovers. They're forced to work together. They both have a lot of money. He is basically designing this resort, and when our female character's stepdad dies, basically in his will, he says that she gets to have a bakery in this resort, and she is very colorful. She's full of color, full of life, very much herself in her bakery. She wants her bakery to reflect in that. And Dominic is not happy with that and fights tooth and nail. So at the beginning, it's very much an enemies to lovers. And I don't know if Shane Rose is for me. I've previously read one of her books and it was okay. I think I gave it like 4 stars or something like that. Unfortunately, I gave this book 2 stars, and I'm going to tell you why, which is why you're here. So it was a multitude of things. With some of the things, I would have probably rated it 3, 3.5, but the ending and the chronic illness rep really dropped it down for me. So I'm going to start with the enemies to lovers part. A lot of authors will say that their book is enemies to lovers, but it has to make sense, right? And I felt like this book did not make sense in the slightest of why they were enemies and like in the first place. So other than her bakery being in his resort, he was very like not accommodating to anything that she wanted added. He was like, we have a very minimalistic resort. Your bakery is not going to have any color. But the bakery that she owns in Florida with her mother and her sister is full of color and full of life, and he knows that. So he like constantly pushed back, but then he gets it in his head that, oh, we should fake date because I have this really shitty ex that kind of really messed up our relationship. Like, she did some pretty nasty things and I didn't like it. So we're gonna fake date to make her jealous. And she's like, okay, I mean, I guess you kind of hated me for no reason. Your assistant hates me. You're not letting me change anything about a bakery, but I guess. And then they have this very physical relationship. So all that happens within 40% of the book. So it's very like boom, 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 boom. There was no like transition period. There was like them meeting at the will reading. She also got her diagnosis the day of the will reading, but it's never said what it is. And you never see her really talk about it throughout most of the book. It's just kind of like you see it in the prologue and then it comes up at the ending because she hides it from everyone in the resort. When one of the other people who has a store in the resort comes up and she's like, oh, I have lupus. And she's like, oh, my uncle has lupus. You need to make sure you take care of yourself. Like, you know, you got to manage your stress. And she's like, yes, I know. And that's when it comes up. And then the next time it comes up is when she's painting the bakery as kind of like I want to add some color. And Dominic's like, I guess that's fine. This is like 70% of the way through the book now. She's painting and that same friend comes up. It's like, what are you doing? You're painting without a mask. Like, this is so bad for your lupus. And Dominic is like, what? And at this point he has feelings for her. She's kind of like, I don't know why he has feelings for me. It's kind of like up in the air. They just have this physical relationship. And I'm like, I mean, I guess that's fine. I mean, that's like one thing to have in a romance book, right? But now he's like wanting to fake date her. Now he's having feelings for her. And it seems like I've fallen in love with her. And the reason why I've fallen in love with her is because she is just so strong. She's been dealing with this chronic illness and she hasn't told anyone. And she's been like, she's just so strong. And it's like, wait, that's the main reason will like tip you over the edge of like, yes, I've fallen in love with you. And she's like, I didn't want to feel like a burden. And he's like, what are you talking about? We need to get you to a doctor. Like, you know, you have this rashes coming up. Your joints are aching more. Your stress levels are high. And it just like kind of comes out of the blue. So I am someone who does have a chronic illness. I'll say that I feel like I can speak on this subject because I have one. I have rheumatoid arthritis, which if you don't know, people who have lupus and who have rheumatoid arthritis also see a rheumatologist. They see the same doctor. They are different in many ways, but they do have some similarities. So I feel like I can speak on this. And I'm going to tell you that this was awful. I don't know if Shane Rose herself has lupus, if it's a new diagnosis for her, if this was an Own Voices thing. I tried to search on her Instagram and it didn't really say anything. I also tried to read the acknowledgments in the beginning. There was no author's note or saying anything. I just felt like this was a very poor representation of the chronic illness in a romance book because she's living her life and you don't get to see anything that she deals with. You don't get to see her trying to eat and manage her stress and how she's dealing with diet and exercise. She's not really seeing a doctor. You see her take her medicine once and he's like, oh, what is this about? And she's like, oh, it's just birth control, but it's like a ton of pills. And I'm like, what? It just felt like the author didn't really take the time to really integrate the chronic illness representation into the story. I just felt like it was a label slapped on the trope list. And even though it's not a trope, it's just slapped under all these tropes and people are like, oh, okay, cool, that has chronic illness rep. And for someone who doesn't have a chronic illness, you may read this book and be like, oh, it was fine. I thought it was okay. It's not. I'm trying to be very objective. But as someone who does have a chronic illness, that's what really pushed this book to a 2-star read for me. Without that, if you were to just take all of that out and she didn't struggle with the chronic illness and she didn't talk about it and it wasn't on the list of underneath the tropes, because it's not a trope, it's just, you know, representation, I maybe would have given it 3-star. But because she added it, I felt like it was actually very poorly represented. This is my opinion. This is how I feel about it. As someone who does have a chronic illness, I feel like I can very much talk about this topic. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is Own Voices. If it is Own Voices and this is her take on it, that's okay too. That's her choice to put it in there as Own Voices. But as someone who has struggled with the chronic illness for about 16, 17 years now, I just didn't think it was the best. I've read other books like Real by Candy Ryan, that when she has a lupus diagnosis and she is struggling with it and you see it throughout the book and she's working with it and she's just, it's like very much incorporated into the book. I felt like this was a wannabe of that and it was very disappointing to me. And I don't know why this was #1 in the Kindle store. Besides the romance, I just don't know why that was anyway. Like, take the chronic illness part out, I just don't understand it. So that was a little bit ranty, I apologize. Another book that was #1 in the Kindle store was Caught Up by Liz Tumford. So I read this book and I thought, I I need to just, with all of these new releases, I need to just lower my expectations. I just need to go into them kind of blind, but knowing like bare minimum. I didn't want to see too many new reviews, like ARC reviews. I didn't want to see too many ARC reviews. I didn't want to look up anything on Goodreads because I really wanted this to be a clean slate. Me going in, this is solely my opinion. And I think Caught Up is well deserving for when it released. It was #1 in the Kindle store within 12 hours, I think. And I 100% agree. This book was a 5-star read for me. It's going to be on my top romances of the year. It was absolutely fantastic. I think when you do a single parent the way that Liz Ford has, this is the way to do it. This is the way to write a single parent romance. So our main male character is a single dad. He has found out, I think when the kid was 6 months old, that the mother did not want the kid anymore. The kid was absolutely adorable. Max was just a result of a one-night stand. And when the mother of Max just drops him off at his doorstep, he's just like, Kai's like, I guess I'm going to be a single dad and I'm trying as best as I can. So he has gone through multiple nannies, and you see that in the first 2 books in the Windy City series. So when our female character steps into this, I guess, world, you see that she's actually the coach's daughter. Kai, our single dad, is a baseball player, is a professional baseball player. And his coach has been trying so hard to get some of these nannies to stick, but he wants someone who's going to take care of his kid when he cannot, when he's playing, when he's on the road, all of these things. He's like, you know what? My daughter is here. She needs a break. She's taking a break from her life. She is a very well-known chef that she goes in, and she's just well-known to come in, take these ideas that these other chefs have and turn them into these greatness things that she's just really, really good at: baking, cooking, all of these things, right? So when he meets her, he's like, no, absolutely not. Because the first glimpse he gets of her is her going up on the elevator when he's coming out of it, and she's holding 2 beers, and it's the middle of the day. Now, he doesn't know she's kind of like on vacation, and she doesn't know that that was the coach's daughter. But I will say, their romance turns out so amazing. They are both dealing with some internal things, that's very emotional. He doesn't want to date someone because he doesn't want that person to come into his life and then leave again, like Max, come into not only his life, but Max's life, and leave like his mother did and not have anything to do with it. And when I tell you, the last 20% of this book had me sobbing. It was just angst-filled. It was not only the romance between our female character, Miller, and Kai. It was this all-around family dynamic that develops so naturally. Like, she just fit in with Max and just fit in with Kai and just complemented his life really well. The same way that Kai complemented Miller's life. And it was this very complicated dynamic between all 3 of them, not just the 2 of them, between the child as well, that Max was brought into Miller's life in a time where she really needed to see kind of a different perspective. It was absolutely incredible, and it was so worth the 500-page read. I promise you. So worth it. I physically read it and I listened to some of the audiobook, and I think that it was just the audiobook. The narrators brought the story to even just like newer heights, and it was just absolutely amazing. If you're going to pick up any of these new releases, pick up this one because it was just absolutely amazing. The found family aspect between the baseball team and the coach, and him being a single dad as well. The coach has been a single dad, and so Miller knows what it feels like to be raised by a single dad and have your mom not there. Her mom passed away when she was, I think, in her teens, so she knows what it feels like to not have a mother there and only lean on your dad, and so she feels for Max. And it was just absolutely amazing. 5-star read. This one is worth the hype. This one is 100% worth the hype, and I can say that with my whole chest. I need everyone. It's like one of my new favorite single parent romances, I should say. The last one that I'm going to talk about is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This one also took the #1 spot from Caught Up when it released, because it released 3 days later. So Caught Up released on October 10th and Hopeless released on October 13th. And I bought the audiobook, and it took me 5 days to finish this book. So you may have watched my channel previously, and you know that I'm a huge fan of Elsie Silver. You know that I love Elsie Silver. I love the Chestnut Spring series, and I was so excited for Beau's book. And I saw some 5-star ARC reviews that came out, and I was like, oh, that's great. So I went in thinking that I'm going to get the Elsie Silver punch, I'm going to get the Elsie Silver romance, and it's going to be great. And this one really let me down. I think my rating, I've been sitting with it for a little while, and I think I'm going to rate it a 3.5-star read. So this one, unfortunately, really let me down in the way that I've rated all 4 of the other books, because there's 5 books. Hopeless is the 5th book. The other 4 books in this series I've rated 5 stars, with the exception of Powerless. I think that teeters on the line of like 4.5 stars compared to kind of like Heartless and Reckless. But, you know, that's just, they all have been 5-star reads. Like if you look on Goodreads, they're all 5 stars for me. This one, I'm very sad that it's a 3.5-star read, because I felt like, one, this is an ending of an era, you know what I mean? All of these characters, you know, we've just fallen in love with them. And I felt like there was something missing. I don't know what it is. I can't put my thumb on it. I just felt like something was missing in this book. And I don't know if it was the kind of insta love kind of connection. It was just a very physical connection right off the bat. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because Kate and Willa had a very, very like physical connection right off the bat. They were extremely into each other. You can tell, right? But that developed into this very emotional relationship. And I just felt like I didn't get that connection the same way that I have with Will and Cade and some other books that I've read in the past where they do have an instant physical connection. So that's one thing I can definitely put my finger on. I also felt like the kind of PTSD that Bo goes with, like has to deal with coming back from the military, you know, going missing for a little while and coming home and having to kind of cope with being a civilian again. I felt like that was just very surface level. And then on the flip side, you have Bailey, who you see her previously in the Chestnut Spring series and you're like, oh, who is that? She seems like this very tortured girl. And she has a very complicated relationship with her brothers and her family. The whole town just does not like her because she has the last name as her brothers, and her brothers are not the best people. So, you know, Bo takes it upon himself to kind of like protect her and bring her in. So they decide to have a fake engagement. He's like, she's going to be my wife, to see how that changes the perception of the town. And it kind of doesn't, you know, like Willa has to step in, Summer has to step in at one time, and I just felt like it really didn't live up to it. It didn't live up to what I felt like, whatever expectations I had, it just didn't live up to it. So with all that being said, I really hope that all makes sense to you guys. I really hope my opinions make sense, but I think sometimes when a book hits #1 on the Kindle store, it doesn't always live up to the same expectations we may have had for a book. And well, that is kind of disappointing. Like, I really wanted Bo's book to be really well done because it's kind of been built up since Jasper's book, since Powerless. And if you've read the previous series by Elsie Silver, her previous series, you know that she can do PTSD and kind of like tortured heroes really, really well. And I just felt like this one didn't live up to that. And it makes me so sad because once again, this was the end of an era. So I will say, just because a book hits #1 in the Kindle store doesn't always mean that it is worth the hype. It's just that a lot of people are picking it up and they're probably reading it. So I wanted to give my opinion on those 4 books. Now I will say I'm going to give a little prediction that I really hope comes true because I'm filming this the day before Shadows of You by Catherine Callis comes out. This is the PR book that she sent was like this. I am currently reading it and I'm tabbing it, and so far I'm loving it, and I'm really hoping that Catherine hits #1 in the Kindle store when this comes out on the 19th because she deserves it. She deserves it. So far it's worth the hype, but I'm only like 100 pages in. So with all that being said, you can check out Shadows of You now. I'll have it linked in the description box below, as well as links to all of the other books that I talked about. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments down below. Be nice. Everyone's opinions is their own. These are just my opinions on these books. So if you have an opinion, definitely let me know. For the emoji, drop me a purple heart emoji because Shadows of You is purple and blue, but drop me a purple heart emoji in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.